Ladies and gentlemen, it all began with one man who dared to call himself the Tribal Chief. From rejection to domination, from boos to acknowledgement. What started as one man's return became an empire that swallowed WWE whole. This is betrayal, power, loyalty, and blood. This is the dark, dramatic, unforgettable story of the Bloodline. Back in 2020, WWE was desperate for something new. Storylines had gone stale. The world was changing fast, and fans were hungrier than ever for drama that felt real. And then came Roman Reigns. Returning after his battle with leukemia, fans expected a hero. Instead, they got something they never saw coming. Aligned with Paul Heyman, Roman shocked the world and claimed the throne as Tribal Chief. From that night forward, nothing in WWE would ever be the same. Over the next few years, betrayals, family feuds, shocking alliances, and emotional storytelling turned one man's transformation into WWE's greatest saga. Tonight, we'll uncover the rise, the dominance, the heartbreak, and the cracks that nearly tore it all apart. Because the Bloodline wasn't just a faction, it became a dynasty that redefined WWE in the 2020s. But every dynasty has its beginning and its downfall. Roman Reigns had always been positioned as WWE's next big star. The chosen one, the heir to John Cena's throne. But no matter how hard WWE pushed, the fans resisted. They booed him at WrestleMania. They hijacked shows with chants for Daniel Bryan. Roman had the look, the talent, the pedigree, but the crowd rejected the good guy version of him. So when Roman returned at SummerSlam 2020, after months away battling leukemia and protecting his health, fans expected more of the same. Another smiling hero, another attempt to force-feed Roman as the face of the company. But instead, what they got changed everything. Roman stormed into the main event, spearing Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt with ruthless aggression. Gone was the superhero cape. In its place was a cold, calculated predator. His eyes carried no warmth, no humility, only dominance. And when he appeared the following week, standing beside none other than Paul Heyman, the WWE Universe gasped. Paul Heyman, the man synonymous with Brock Lesnar, was now the voice of Roman Reigns. Heyman declared that Roman wasn't here to save WWE, he was here to rule it, and Roman's chilling new declaration echoed through the arena. "I'm not your savior, I'm your Tribal Chief." This wasn't a request for approval, this was a demand for acknowledgement. Roman's first victims were Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman, crushed under his newfound ruthlessness. His dominance wasn't flashy, it was surgical, a slow dismantling of anyone foolish enough to step in his path. And just like that, the era of the Tribal Chief was born. But power means nothing without loyalty, and Roman's first test came from within his very own family. Enter Jey Uso. For years, Jey had been seen as a tag team specialist, one half of the Usos. Exciting, reliable, but never in the singles spotlight. Suddenly, fate thrust him into the main event picture against his own cousin. At first, fans thought it would be a throwaway feud, but what unfolded became some of the most emotional storytelling WWE had delivered in years. Roman looked at Jey not as a challenger, but as a test subject. He demanded respect. He demanded acknowledgement as the head of the family, but Jey refused to bow down. At Clash of Champions 2020, Roman brutalized Jey. He didn't just pin him, he humiliated him, battering him until Jimmy Uso rushed down to throw in the towel. Roman stood tall, not as a champion celebrating a win, but as a dictator enforcing obedience. But the true turning point came at Hell in a Cell inside a steel cage. This wasn't just a championship match, it was an I quit match. The Tribal Chief didn't want to win, he wanted submission, he wanted acknowledgement. The match was raw, Jey fought with everything he had. The emotion was unbearable as Roman punished him, screaming at him to call him Tribal Chief. Tears streamed down Jey's face. Jimmy rushed in to save his brother, begging Roman to stop, but Roman refused. He locked Jimmy in a guillotine choke, forcing Jey to quit not for himself, but to protect his brother's life. When Jey finally muttered the words, "I quit," Roman released his grip, his face cold and unrelenting. That night, Roman Reigns didn't just win a match. He broke his family, he bent them to his will, he proved that blood wasn't thicker than power. From that moment, Roman wasn't just the Tribal Chief, he was the head of the table, and he wanted his family at his side, whether they liked it or not. Following the Hell in a Cell war, Jey had a choice. fall in line or be cast out. Roman demanded loyalty, demanded acknowledgement, and eventually Jey succumbed. Reluctantly, painfully, he joined his cousin. Jimmy, recovering from injury, returned months later. At first he resisted, refusing to kneel, but Roman, through manipulation and threats, pulled him in too. Together, the Usos and Roman formed the foundation of what the world would soon know as the Bloodline. And with that unity came a transformation. They weren't just family anymore. They were a unit, an empire. The Usos became Roman's soldiers, his generals in battle. The hand gesture, "We the ones." The phrase, "acknowledge him," spread like wildfire. Week after week on SmackDown, challengers came and challengers fell. Kevin Owens, Cesaro, even legends like Edge and Daniel Bryan couldn't topple the Chief when his family stood at his side. The Bloodline wasn't just winning matches, they were rewriting WWE's hierarchy. And for the first time in years, fans weren't just watching, they were invested. Every move mattered, every stare told a story. The dynasty was forming before our eyes. From 2021 into 2022, the Bloodline became unstoppable. Roman's Universal Championship reign stretched past 500 days, then 700, then 1,000. Every challenger who stepped up was crushed. From John Cena's return to Edge's fiery comebacks, from Daniel Bryan's final SmackDown farewell to Brock Lesnar's wars, the story was always the same. Roman stood tall and the Bloodline stood stronger. Meanwhile, the Usos dominated the tag division, unifying the titles and establishing themselves as one of the greatest tag teams of all time. Their chemistry, their swagger, their presence, all elevated by their association with Roman. Paul Heyman, the master manipulator, added fuel to the fire. On the mic, he sold Roman as the undisputed tribal chief, the end-all and be-all of WWE. His words made Roman's dominance feel larger than life. The Bloodline wasn't just a faction, they were a machine. They controlled SmackDown, they controlled the pay-per-views, they controlled the conversation. This was the island of relevancy, and everyone else, they were just visitors. But then came the most unlikely twist of all, Sami Zayn. At first, it was comedy. Sami, the paranoid underdog, desperate for relevance, started hanging around the Bloodline. He wore their shirts, mimicked their gestures, and called himself the honorary Use. Fans laughed, Roman smirked, the Usos teased him, but slowly, something unexpected happened. Sami won them over, he helped them win matches, he cracked jokes that even Roman couldn't resist, and week after week, the fans grew louder, chanting his name, cheering for the honorary Use. Then came the tension. Kevin Owens warned Sami that Roman would never truly accept him. The seeds of doubt were planted. At Survivor Series 2022, War Games, Sami made his choice. When given the chance to betray Roman, he instead low-blowed Kevin Owens and handed victory to the Bloodline. That night, Roman embraced him. Sami was in. The crowd erupted, but as Roman's paranoia grew, his patience with Sami wore thin. The tribal chief tested him, humiliated him, questioned his loyalty. And then came the breaking point. Royal Rumble 2023. After Roman destroyed Kevin Owens, he handed Sami a steel chair and demanded he deliver the killing blow. The arena fell silent. Sami's hand shook, and in one of the most unforgettable moments of the decade, Sami turned and smashed the chair across Roman's back. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The crowd exploded. Jey Uso stood frozen, torn between family and friend. Roman's face twisted with rage. The Empire had cracked. What began as comedy had turned into heartbreak. Fans around the world called it the greatest storyline WWE had told in years. And for the first time, the Bloodline looked vulnerable. The fallout from Sami's betrayal was seismic. Jey Uso refused to stand with Roman. For weeks, he vanished, his silence speaking louder than any promo. The question on everyone's lips, would Jey acknowledge the tribal chief or walk away forever? Jimmy, once Roman's most loyal soldier, finally snapped. His frustration boiled over, and in shocking fashion, he superkicked Roman himself, declaring he'd had enough. Even Paul Heyman, the man who had crowned Roman as tribal chief, looked conflicted. Every time Roman barked orders, Paul flinched. His loyalty was absolute, but so was his fear, and looming in the background was Solo Sikoa. The younger brother of the Usos, Solo arrived as Roman's enforcer, demolishing anyone in his path. But questions swirled. Was Solo truly loyal to Roman? Or was he quietly waiting for his moment to take over? The cracks had become fractures. The Empire trembled. And for the first time, the end felt possible. By the mid-2020s, one truth was undeniable. The Bloodline wasn't just a faction, they were a dynasty. Roman Reigns had become the defining face of WWE. His title reigns shattered records. The Usos became the most decorated tag team in company history. Solo Sikoa emerged as a powerhouse of the future. And together, they built a storyline that wasn't just wrestling, it was cinema. It was family drama. It was betrayal, love, loyalty, and pain. Fans compared it to the NWO, DX, Evolution, even The Shield. But when the dust settled, one argument rose above them all. The Bloodline was the greatest faction of the modern era, and with whispers of The Rock one day returning to challenge Roman, fans knew the saga wasn't finished yet. The Bloodline story was still being written. The Bloodline didn't just dominate WWE, they redefined it. Roman Reigns turned boos into acknowledgement. He took the hatred of crowds and molded it into power. He forced his family to bend the knee, only to watch them rise against him. He built an empire with his bare hands, only to see cracks form in the foundation. For years, no one could touch him. For years, Roman sat at the head of the table, untouchable, undeniable. Love him or hate him, you cannot deny him. Roman Reigns built more than a title reign. He built a legacy, a dynasty, a story that fans will debate for decades, and that dynasty is called the Bloodline. So now, WWE Universe, the question is yours. Is the Bloodline truly the greatest faction in WWE history? Or does the NWO, DX, Evolution, or even The Shield still hold that crown? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The boldest, wildest takes get pinned. Because in the end, whether you boo him, cheer him, love him, or hate him, you still do the one thing Roman Reigns has demanded since day one. You must acknowledge him.